Hi y'all, this is part 4 of the Rapture videos. We're going to go into the 77 and 84 thing. So Israel is 77 years old this year. And the Bible says that it will be made in a day, which is exactly what happened. One day, Israel was created, and it basically says all the tribes will gather back home and it will become a country, which it did under the language of Hebrew, the original language of the Jews. So, and that's what happened. That's the primary language in Israel is Hebrew. All of these are prophetic things that already came true. But it's 77 years old, which is notable because it is, in context, it means judgment and forgiveness. And it says in the Bible that the generation that's born in Israel will not come to pass, meaning they're not going to die. And the biblical thing says that's 77 or 70 to 80 years. That's what a generation is. Well, if that's the case, rapture has to happen before the 80 years. The 7-year tribulation has to happen before the 80 years. 77 is also significant to Israel specifically because Jacob, who is Israel, met his wives. He has 2 wives, and he had sons from those marriages anyway, that became Israel. But anyway, Jacob meets both wives when he's 77 years old, which I know that's crazy, right? Leah and Rachel, he met both those wives when he was 77 years old. They married when he was 84 years old. Interesting, right? Again, we're 77 this year. 7 years plus 77 is 84. I feel like that's significant, and like I said before, God is the God of doublespeak. He will repeat things for a purpose because it's easy for us to understand. It's like math. He's a math guy, you know? He likes doing things where even the dumbest of us can do basic math and figure out what he was saying. Anyway, that's what he did. And that's one of the things that's going on. So 77 also means forgiveness and vengeance. And there's also the fact that an 84-year-old met a widow. She wasn't 84 years old. She was a widow for 84 years. Her name was Anna, and she patiently waited for Christ and met Christ after he was born. And I just feel like that's significant because if we're right, every knee shall bow so rapture happens at 77 years. 84 years is when Israel finally, bows to Jesus. They've been waiting for their Messiah. They had him all along, they just didn't realize it, right? So if that's the case, 84 years they've been waiting to meet the Messiah, and they meet him. Well, that's the same thing that happened with Anna. She, widowed for 84 years, waiting for Jesus, and goes to meet Jesus. I just think that's significant. And so that's the one. Also, Psalm 77 says God's mighty power sends God's mighty power to help his people, which I think, I don't know. You can give or take that, but I thought that was interesting. I don't think that's necessarily 100% proof, but it's certainly something to think about. I think there's way more evidence, but I definitely think some of this stuff is just confirmation. which a lot of people need. A lot of the confirmation that's coming out is personal. I'm going to save my personal confirmations because it's kind of a long story and there's backstory to it. I'll go into detail about all that, but basically I've seen angels multiple times. I've died twice. I've heard the voice of God a couple times. I've had some stuff happen in my life that I think God was trying to let me know I'm not alone a lot of times. Anyway, so I'll get into my personal confirmation. And even recently, I've been really struggling with making these videos on whether or not I should do it because I felt like I don't want to mislead people into thinking that he's coming if he's not. So I was really praying hard about it because I got a literal wake-up call, 2 a.m., screaming at me to wake up. And I woke up and was like, what, God? Like, why are you screaming at me? I had a bad gut feeling for, like, I don't know, maybe a month. I've had this bad gut feeling, but I thought it was personal because some stuff was going down. So I kind of brushed it off as far as God. You know, because he sends me, like, warnings a lot. And usually it's generally, you know, like, I knew my mom was going to die before she died. I knew I was going to get in a car accident that I got into before it happened. I knew I was going to get in another car accident that I got into before it happened. I didn't know contextually what it was, but afterwards it was like, well, the one of the car accidents, I absolutely knew what it was. I knew I was going to get a car accident on that road, on this journey that I went on. I went from Arizona to Wyoming, and I knew 100% I was going to get in a car accident there. I felt it in my soul. I knew exactly what was going to happen, and it did. I even tried to change things, but then I was kind of strong-armed by a friend of mine to actually go up this mountain, and it was snowing, and she guilted me because she wanted a cigarette, and I'm a smoker, and I know what it's like not to have a cigarette, and I know how crazy that can make you, and she had 3 young kids at the time, so I was like, all right, you know, I know I shouldn't do this, but all right, I'll make it. So I was driving relatively slowly, but it's a mountain road. It was snowing and icy and very dangerous, and so yeah, I just didn't think about it. I'll tell the full story later, but suffice it to say, I knew that was going to happen, and I heard the voice of God during that crash. So I'll explain all that in another video because that's going to be a long story. That's probably going to be my longest video. Talking about all of it. I might even have to break it up into 2 videos. But anyway, point is, I really struggled with making these, and then I got confirmation in abundance. So I was like, okay, clearly there's no doubt anymore. I don't doubt. So I'm sure that either we're getting raptured or something major is happening. Something we don't have any concept of. You know, the world's going to plunge into darkness a year before that stuff. I don't know. I know either we're getting raptured or it's going to be really bad. Really bad. I don't know what it is, but I'm telling you right now, if it's not rapture, the timeline's wrong. It can't not be rapture unless the years are wrong, because the math doesn't work out any other way. The Day of Atonement and Feast of Trumpets do not end up being 2,550 days apart. It happened 9 times from 1948. I think it's 9. It might be 5. Something like that, or 7. It's either 7 or 9. But I'm pretty sure it was 9 times. And I believe this is the 10th since 1948, right? It was rare before, if ever. And it was a whole bunch after Israel became a country. And by the way, there's a bunch of stuff that happened around those times. That's kind of fascinating if you want to look into that. But it's neither here nor there. You don't have to learn about it. It's I don't think it's necessary unless you really want to understand just how mighty God's power is and how much he absolutely loves Israel. I mean, it's a fun thing to learn about, but, you know, you don't have to. It's not necessary, at least not currently. But yeah, so there was all these crazy things that happened around these dates. And we're not going to have another one for at least hundreds of years where it lines up perfectly like that. So, yeah, I think somebody even went like 2,000 years into the future, and there isn't another perfectly lined Feast of Trumpets, Day of Atonement, 2,550 days, which is kind of fascinating. But anyway, so that's kind of what's going on. I will be making more videos. Stay tuned. There's a lot. Okay, thanks. Bye.